on climate change adaptation in semi-arid regions in India. So this is all about myself. And can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, we can
Sir,
hear you very clear.
Yeah.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Thank,
sir.
Great to
thank
know
you.
about your work on vulture and the hornbill.
Yeah, yesterday is Vulture Awareness Day, isn't it? And most of you people are from wildlife background. I no need of explaining more about vultures. And few of them are joined newly in this course. They don't know about wildlife and all. So they are very new to this field. So this is our duty to explain them in a proper way, isn't it? We have to convey for our conservation issues. And yes, everyone knows except few. There are 23 vulture species around the world, and of these, 9 species are recorded in India. And no, there are 5 species are resident species, and rest of the 4 species are migratory vultures in India. So the vultures are no declined due to various reasons, and one of the main reason is the diclofenac poisoning. Isn't it? That's why the vultures are declined drastically in India as well as other parts of our neighboring countries, also like Southeast Asia. So it is our duty to protect the vulture species from the extinction. Not only vulture species, all the species, living things in the world. So, as you know, on behalf of Vulture Day, Vulture Conservation Awareness Day, I would like to request you all people that you should teach in and around your neighbors or friends or people and farmers and cattle owners not to use diclofenac on veterinary purposes. So that is the only major reason for vulture declining in India. There are some other reasons also. So this is the one of the major reason, and this is our duty to convey this message on behalf of the International Vulture Awareness Day. So now I will give a lecture on Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Actually, I would like to say a few words about the historical background of the wildlife legislation. And conservation is an ardent article of faith in India. Even if everyone knows conservation is an ardent article of faith in India. And also, Emperor Ashoka, also the earliest conservationist act, he also passed an act in 3rd century BC. And also, since independence, India has taken significant steps to conserve wildlife and its habitat through several administrative measures like establishment of legislation, notifying protected areas, and also they can undertaking special conservation project to protect the threatened wildlife of India. Besides, several laws have been implemented to conserve various flora and fauna of this country. The Indian Board of Wildlife was constituted in 1952 to advise the government on measures to be adopted for the conservation of wilderness area along with the various life and resource found there. And the Wildlife Protection Act was passed in 1972, followed by Forest Protection Act in 1980. The Wildlife Protection Act 1972 is the comprehensive central legislation affording legal measures for protection of wild animals. And it is not only provided countrywide legal protection to the endangered animals, but also specified the provisions for setting up protected areas as well as regulation of trade and commerce, wild animals, animal part products and programs. And our country also adopted National Wildlife Action Plan in 2002 to meet the new challenges in wildlife conservation. The National Board of Wildlife was constituted in September 2003 as a statutory authority with full strength of law of land behind it. Now it is entrusted with the responsibility of providing trust to the conservation activities. And over the years, and this is not been updated, over the years means till 2017, before 2017, there are one three 103 national parks and 536 wildlife sanctuaries, 67 conservation reserves, and 26 community reserves have been created in India in order to protect critical ecosystem as well as to preserve the genetic resources of unquantifiable commercial and non-commercial. And also the concept of setting up biosphere reserves have evolved under the Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO. Actually, this is a biosphere reserve are notified for conserving the biological diversity of a representative ecosystem, including flora, fauna, and microorganisms. And these biosphere reserves provide facility for education and awareness generation along with the scope of ecological research. In addition to the notification, various protected areas, several conservation projects have been taken up for several endangered species to restore their population, bring them back from the verge of extinction. Like like apex predators, like example, like several keystone species and umbrella species were selected for conservation projects. What is keystone species means what?
Possibly an apex predator in the area.
Yeah, and keystone species means it is an indicator of the particular ecosystem, isn't it? And if we lost that particular species, means the entire ecosystem will collapse. Yeah, umbrella species means no. The one if you save a particular species, it is an important species. If you save the particular species, means it will be helpful for other species also, and that is umbrella species. Uh, yeah, and these are the some of the examples of historical background of wildlife of our country in India, and Gir Lion Sanctuary established in 1972, Project Tiger in 1973, Himalayan Muscle Ecology Conservation Project 1974, Manipur Brown Antelope Day Project started in 1977, Project Hangul started in 1970, and Crocodile Breeding Project started in 1975, and Operation Rhino 1992, and Project Tiger Project Tiger uh, Project Angol started in 1970, Crocodile Breeding Project started in 1975, and Operation Rhino started in 1992, and Project Elephant in 1971. These are the new success stories of the conservation projects in India, and these are the projects being implemented by government of India. And apart from this, certain programs are started by some of the agencies or organizations in India, like Vulture Conservation Breeding Program started in 2002 and started in Pinjur, Haryana. Most of the people know about the Vulture Conservation Breeding Program, and it was now established in 2002. And now we have several conservation breeding projects in India, like Assam, West Bengal, and yeah, West Bengal, Assam, Rani in Assam, and Pinjore in Haryana. And some of the zoos also have been comes under the Vulture Conservation Breeding Project. And Nehru Zoological means Nehru Park also selected, no, Sweta, for Conservation Breeding Project program.
Sir, yes.
Yeah. How many species of vultures are there in your park?
I think we have, I think 5 species, I think, sir.
Okay. What are those species? May you know?
One is longbill, and The other one is
White bag,
yeah, white back, and
red-headed vulture.
yeah, I don't remember the last two ones. It's out of my mind
Okay,
actually.
okay. So this purpose of no, there are four species of vultures are in verge of extinction. Means they are categorized, IUCN categorized under critically endangered species like Oriental white-backed vulture. That is scientific name of the Oriental white-backed vulture is Gyps bengalensis, and Gyps indicus, that is Indian long-billed vulture, and cylinder-bill vulture, it is Gyps tenirostris, and Sarcogyps calvus, and this is under that is king vulture, means red vulture, and Egyptian vultures also. So main purpose of breeding program is that to improve the vulture population in India. So far now they have started releasing also vultures in the wild out of the breeding program. Vulture are breeding in the conservation breeding center, and some of the vultures are have been released in the wild. So far, it is being monitored by the some of the DNHS and the government of Haryana and Assam and West Bengal. So these are ongoing projects and already implemented projects. These are the implemented projects in India, and also India is a signatory to the Convention of International Trade in Endangered Species, Wild and Fauna and Flora. Yeah. So the need of nature and wildlife conservation has been incorporated in the Indian Constitution. So in addition to that, several national legislative measures have been adopted for the protection of wildlife in our country. And Indian Constitution, this is the directive principles and state policy also. Article 48A of Directive Principles of State Policy pronounces that the state shall endeavor to protect and improve the environment and to safeguard the forest and wildlife of the country. Isn't it? It is our duty. It means the state shall endeavor to protect and improve the environment and to safeguard the forest and wildlife of the country. So, and fundamental duties of the citizens of India in Article 51 it is mentioned that inter alia states that it shall be the duty of every citizen of India to protect and improve the national environment, including forests, lakes, rivers, and the wildlife, and to have patience for living creatures. These are the Article 2 are the important articles, states that the state policy and duty of citizens of India, Article 51 and Article 48A. So, yeah. The 42nd Amendment of Constitution in 1976 has incorporated forest and wildlife in the concurrent list, which means above the beyond controlling the protection and preservation of wildlife, and central government can acquire certain forests and wildlife sanctuaries of national importance under the power of acquisition of property. So the central government has all this. The central government has the power, like 42nd Amendment of Constitution in 1976 is incorporated forest wildlife in the concurrent list. This means that beyond the controlling the protection, preservation of wildlife, and central government can acquire certain forests and the wildlife sanctuaries of national importance and the power of acquisition of property. It's entry 42 of Union list. And the 73rd Amendment of Constitution in 1992 has to some extent linked the Panchayat to environment protection and conservation. And in 73, third Amendment of Constitution in 1992 has to some extent linked to the Panchayat to environment protection. Actually, without people participation, it is very difficult to conserve a species in the world. some of the species are has to be conservation has to be without their support. It is very difficult to conserve a particular species. So it is very, very important. Panchayats also, including panchayats. In our project in the Moyar Valley, I have to say my work only actually is successful in Tamil Nadu, and we passed some resolutions in during Grama Sabhas. So not to use diclofenac for cattle purposes. So likewise, the means people are agreed, and now the vulture has been protected somehow in Moyar Valley. And wherever you go to Mudumalai and Satyamangalam forest, you can see vultures now. So I am not saying that vulture population is improved. Means I would like to say that vulture population is somehow declining, stop somehow in Tamil Nadu. So and also some of the national acts related to wildlife conservation also. I have to say a few words about the national acts related to wildlife conservation. The states and central authority have made several acts from time to time to protect wildlife and check their decline. Some important acts are like some of the important acts means like state has power to means put their own act means protect wildlife and check their decline and Madras Wildlife Wild Elephant Preservation Act of 1973 and All India Elephant Preservation Act of 1879 and Wild Birds and Animal Preservation Act in 1912 and Bengal Rhinoceros Preservation Act 1932 and Bombay Wild Animals and Wild Bird Protection Act 1951 and Protection Act of 1954 and Indian Wildlife Protection Act 1972. This we are going to see in a brief. And Forest Protection Act 1980 and the Biological Diversity Act in 2002. So these are some of the acts, means several acts. And also declaration of national and state animals and plants. Like as we know, everyone knows about these things. And it is an alternative and effective way to conserve indigenous wildlife is to assign them as status. According the government of India, we know declared the tiger as a national animal, Indian peafowl as a national bird, banyan tree means Ficus bengalis as national tree, and lotus, Nilambu muscipula as national flower, and mango, Mangifera as national fruit of India. Similarly, each state has declared one of each animal, birds, and trees and flowers, as we know, isn't it? And some of you know which bird is they recommended first to put a
Great,
national bird.
Great Indian Bustard.
Yes, and they annoyed means they want they don't want to means why they selected this bird for particular aspect means I would like to ask you.
I think it's because of mythological reasons. It's
Okay,
just my
that is one
opinion.
thing. Yeah, that is one thing. Is others' opinion? The Indian bustard is not selected for this reason because the name itself, they do not select that particular bird for, And Indian people is a commonly distributed bird across our India, isn't it? And wherever you go, you can see this bird. And also, it is very beautiful bird also. That's why. And the tiger, as you know, national bird, when national tree, lotus means lotus nilambu means Pura, and Mangifera India also. And some of them are said that I am very poor in this botany side, and some of my professor they told that Mangifera indica also is an exotic tree species to India. I don't know whether it is correct or wrong. So, Manchikara indica mango. And, similarly, each state has declared one of each mammals and birds and trees. And recently, Alia Mir in Leh, Ladakh, no, recently they declared some and bird for
Yes,
state animal, isn't it?
have declared black-necked
Crane.
crane as their state bird and snow leopard as their state union territory animal.
Yeah, yeah. So the purpose of declaring these animals and birds is that for conserving the particular bird and it is a unique landscape species. It is very difficult to see birds, means these birds, means state birds, some of the state birds in particular. So likewise, in Telangana, some of you can say, which is the, what is the, your state, Telangana state bird and
Telangana state bird is Indian roller, I think.
Indian?
Indian roller.
Indian
Or the blue jay is what they
Blackbird.
call.
Animal is blackbird.
Okay, blackbird,
Animal is spotted deer.
spotted there.
Spotted deer.
Some of them are said blackbird.
Okay.
Earlier were united, it was black buck, sir, but it is now spotted deer.
Spotted.
Okay, got it.
And we also have a state fish that is Chenna striata.
Oh, Channa Strayata. Oh, very good. So likewise, some of the states also mentioned, declared on each mammal and birds and trees. Like Andhra Pradesh, earlier not divided Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, they declared blackbird and Indian roller, isn't it? And Arunachal Pradesh, Hulakulban.
For now,
And
Andhra Pradesh, for now it is ringneck parakeet.
Okay, okay. These no earlier notes I have with me. So, yeah. And Assam, anyone knows about Assam mammal?
Maybe rhino, sir. It is abundant level.
Yes, one-horned rhinos. Yeah, and white-winged wood-duck. And in Bihar, var, bows, frontales, and parakeets. And likewise, so many states of our India, they have put their own, declared their own mammal or flower. In Tamil Nadu, what is the state animal of Tamil Nadu? Suri Prakasan. Nilgiri Tar and the Emerald Dove. And Jammu Kashmir, Ali Amir.
So for the since it has
I'm not audible, Alia.
declared as the union territory, and Ladakh has been declared as the separate union territory.
Okay.
So now we are animal for Jammu and Kashmir, and maybe Kashmir paradise flycatcher be the state bird of Jammu and Kashmir. So actually voting is going on, so nothing has been finalized now.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah, thank you, Alia, man. And my favorite was Charles state bird of Uttar Pradesh. Which I supposed to do here, but because of time concern, I cannot able to do this project. and like so many llamas and birds and people are pets about the mammals. So now I come to the point Indian Wildlife Act. Indian Wildlife Protection Act, this is to provide for the protection of wild animals, birds and plants and for the matters connected therewith or ancillary or incidental thereto with a view to ensuring the ecological and environmental security of our country. Now, yeah, am I audible? Okay, wait. Am I audible?
Sir, yes, sir, you're audible, sir.
Okay. And this is Indian Wildlife Protection Act 1972. This act to provide for the protection of wild animals, birds and plants, and for matters connected therewith or ancillary or incidental thereto with a view to ensuring the ecological and environmental security of our country. And this act is applicable all over India except Jammu and Kashmir, which has its own act for conservation of wildlife. And after separation of this means Damanam, Leh, Ladakh also, and prohibits hunting of any wild animals listed in its schedules, and sets out the rules for setting up any protected area and the regulations to be observed inside the protected areas, and clearly defines the punishments and the penalties against committing crimes related to wildlife and violating several provisions of acts. This is all about to know the importance of these acts, and this there was a growing concern wildlife to conserve our our wildlife world, especially on the plight of endangered species of plants and animals. And during 70s, policymakers realized that survival of wildlife and its habitat will be jeopardized unless a uniform, well-structured law is enacted across our country. So most of the act was now created in means 70s only. And also popularity declining in the during the year 70s only. Whenever 1 minute. Yeah. Even vulture, when we talk about, am I audible now?
Sir, yes, sir, you're audible, sir.
Sir, you are audible, but your
And,
voice is too feeble.
Okay. And during early 70s, now it's okay?
No, not at all, sir.
Okay. 1 minute, 1 minute. Am I audible now?
You are audible, sir. And if there's any issue,
Okay,
we'll
thank you.
again let you know that whether we can hear you or not.
Yeah. I am very sorry. Actually, I am in my hometown today. So I have very, little internet problem over here. So next class onwards, I will be in city. You can hear it properly. I hope so. Yeah. So, so actually, there was a growing concern. Means why the Wildlife Act is created in 1972 means concern worldwide to conserve our wildlife wealth, especially on plate of these outflow animals. And during that the survival of wildlife and its habitat would be jeopardized unless a uniform well structure is enacted across the country. So most of the wild animals started declining in during 1970s only. And based on the recommendation of Indian Board of Wildlife, that is IBWL, and the Indian Wildlife Protection Act was passed by the Parliament in 1972 to provide protection to wildlife in general and threatened species in particular. And there are 7 distinct chapters are there in the Act, and one chapter is that chapter 1. This is preliminary act, means includes art title. In chapter 2, authorities to be appointed to constituted under the Act, and chapter 3, hunting of wild animals, and chapter 3A, protection of specified plants, and chapter 4, protected areas including sanctuaries, national parks, and closed areas, and chapter 4A, central zoo authority and recognition of zoos, and chapter 4B is the National Tiger Conservation Authority. This is a new chapter is incorporated in Wildlife Protection Amendment Act 2006, and chapter 4C is saying that tiger and other endangered species crime control bureau. This is also a new chapter incorporated in Wildlife Protection Amendment Act in 2006. And chapter 5, trade or commerce in wild animals, animal article and trophies. And chapter 5A is saying that prohibition of trade or commerce in trophies, animal articles and derived from the certain animals. And chapter 6, prevention and detection of offenses. And chapter 6A, forfeiture of property derived from the illegal hunting and trade. This is also new chapter incorporated in Wildlife Protection Amendment in 2002. And chapter 7 is miscellaneous chapter. Yeah. And the chapter actually, as per demand of the time, initially the Act allowed hunting permits to some extent and the permitted regulated trade of certain wildlife articles like ivory, fur, skin, and other derivatives. However, under the legal coverage, traders misused this provision and acquired fresh stocks by financing poachers. Subsequently, 2 amendments to the Act were made in 1986 and 99 to overcome such loopholes and to make it strong enough to deter wildlife crime. These amendments incorporated new provisions including instructions related to zoo management, protection of plants, and prohibition of trade in animal articles. In the 1986, the amendment was challenged by wildlife traders in Delhi High Court, and initially they were successful in obtaining a stay order. Though the 1986 amendment imposed a ban on trade in Asian ivory, it was not challenged by ivory traders as they were not affected because they declared all their stocks to be made from imported African ivory. Later in the year 1989, international trade in Africa and being signatory to CITES. India also imposed ban on import of African ivory and carvings. Subsequently, the 1991 amendment imposed trade in imported ivory too. The traders immediately went to the Delhi High Court and obtained stay order. In 1992, the stay order was vacated through untiring efforts of government
and other NGOs, and the amendment finally came into force. Later, a major breakthrough occurred by amendment in the year 2002 to minimize the anomalies and to make it more meaningful. The Wildlife Protection, that is Amendment Act in 2002, came in operational from 1st April 2003. This is the comprehensive revision of the INCIL Act through significant shift in attitudes and approaches to make it more acceptable to the common people. Such revisions were based on sets of recommendations suggested by expert committee after analyzing the ground realities. New concept of the areas in the form of conservation reserves and communities of protected area reserves have been put forward to involve local people in conservation efforts. On one hand, this act in its new form accommodates the concern of local people for enjoying benefits with ecologically sustainable limits from the natural resource on their doorsteps. On the other hand, it is also incorporates stringent measures to conserve rich wild heritage towards desirable goals. In fact, it is a revised regulatory mechanism that is not anti-people in nature, rather a need-based interventions to restore national and social interest. Wild animals are enlisted in 5 different schedules specified in the Wildlife Protection Act. One is Scheduled 1, that is includes rare and threatened animals, and Schedule 2 includes animals that enjoy special game status, and Schedule 3 is including big game birds, big game wild animals, and Schedule 4 includes small games wild animals, and Schedule 5 includes vermins wild animals. These are the wild animals are enlisted 5 different schedules specified under WPA. Are they provided with stringent protection under the legislation? Strict control measures are imposed to safeguard these scheduled species, and the hunting is altogether banned. And also, the Act also has its unique features of Indian wildlife. In Section 9 of the Act prohibits hunting of any wild animals specified in Schedule 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are the schedules are there. Schedule 1 is includes rare and threatened animals, and Schedule 2 is includes animals that enjoy special game, and Schedule 3 includes big game wild animals. Schedule 4 is includes small game wild animals. And also, the Act suggests that Constitution of National Board for Wildlife. It is a statutory authority instead of Indian Board of Wildlife. This advisory body. Similarly, State Wildlife Advisory Board becomes converted into State Board of Wildlife. And also, this empowers the individuals and NGOs to file wildlife court cases. And also, this Act suggests changes in the Constitution of Protected Area under Section 18, presently treated as deemed protected areas. As per Section 26A, subsection 3, no alteration of the boundaries of the sanctuary shall be made by the state government except on the recommendations of the National Board. Similar changes in the case of national parks under Section 35 have been recommended. And according to the Section 33, no construction of commercial tourist lodges, zoos, and safari parks shall be undertaken inside the sanctuary except prior approval of the National Board. And Section 35, Clause 6 states that no person shall destroy, exploit, or remove any wild animals or deprive any wild animals of its habitat within such national parks except under and in accordance with permit granted by the Chief Wildlife Warden. And Section 36A introduces the concept of establishment of conservation of reserves and government-owned land only in the consultation with local communities, which will enable creation of corridors and give protection to habitat adjoining a sanctuary and national park. In Section 36C, introduces the concept of formation of community reserves on private or community owned lands in collaboration with the local communities, including villages, panchayats, to provide protection to many species located outside national park and sanctuary. And Section 36 depicts the function of Central Zoo Authority and provides recognition of zoos. According to the Section 39, wild animals, wild animals are government property, keep, transfer, damage, and destroy them without prior written permission from the Chief Wildlife Warden. As stated in Section 40A, the Act will enable the central government to give another opportunity to such person who has not yet declared wild animals and articles in their possession to declare such items and to register them and procure ownership certificate against the declared items from the concerned authorities. And Section 44 prohibits dealing in animal article and trophy without proper license. And Section 48A imposes a restriction on the transportation of wild animal and wildlife. Section 51 depicts the penalties. Section 61A lays down a system of rewards to persons who render assistance in the detection of wildlife offences. According to Section 61, the central government may add or delete any entry to or from any schedule or transfer any entry from one part of a schedule to another part of the same schedule or from one schedule to another by notification, or it's of the opinion that such changes are useful and necessary. According to the Section 61, Section 62, the central government may declare any wild animals. This is other than those specified in Schedule 1 and Part 2 of Schedule 2 to be vermin for any area and for such period as may be specified by notification therein. So long as such notification is in force, such wild animals shall be deemed to have been included in Schedule 5. Why Schedule 5 says that includes vermin wild animals. Okay. And some limitations also there. We have some limitations in Wildlife Protection Act 1972. And despite of such a stringent act, proper and successful enforcement of the provisions of Wildlife Protection Act is still a major challenge. Being plagued with illiteracy and poverty, even today many in this country view animals as a resources and should be used at will. Besides, India has been one of the leading suppliers of the most coveted wildlife products like tiger paws, rhino horns, ivory, and live birds and mammals. In the past, and is strategically placed between the consumer countries, although at present hunting wildlife is banned in this country, still the demand exists in many parts of this country. Wildlife is illegally killed and traded. Many people in this country are unaware of the existence of this Wildlife Protection Act and do not even know that trespassing, trade, and trafficking of wildlife are criminal offences. Strange but true, but that even some of the protectors of wildlife and custodians of laws are not completely familiar with various provisions of this act. Lastly, a law by itself cannot control crime, rather it needs active participation. Okay, this is all about the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Now I share this Google form with you.
Sir?
One minute.
Yeah.
I said Google form. Everyone should fill this form and send it to me. Actually, this is I will taken for your attendance. Yeah. Tell me, Akhil.
Oh, sir, this is Shravan.
Sorry. Shravan. Yeah.
So, sir, what are the conditions in wildlife for research?
Condition is that asking how to write a permission or that is.
What are the sections which enable us to do our research, and what are the limitations in that research?
Yeah, actually, two things are there. If you want to do your research in a particular protected area, so
Sir.
even if you'll go to outside the protected areas, unprotected areas also, we need to get a permission from the concerned authorities. For example, if you want to do some garbage dump surveys in and around our city outskirts, means we have to get a permission from the concerned municipal corporation and as well as from the forest department also. Okay, one thing.
Okay.
And
Sir.
for getting this permission, based on our species interest also. Actually,
Yes, sir.
if you want to do endangered species study or threatened species or common species, that is based on our interest. We have to write a letter to the chief wildlife warden, and chief wildlife warden is the deciding authority, and they have a meeting. Every state they have their own panels. They will discuss with their panel whether this study is important or not, and based on the panel suggestion, they will give us the permission. That is, two things are there. One is if you want to do a sample survey or documentation survey or filming or any gene survey, means collection of material,
Genetic material.
genetic material in the forest. So
Sir.
based on that, they will decide. And also you have to get a permission from National Biodiversity Authority. If you will collect the genetic material from the sanctuaries and protected areas, you have to collect permission. Means you have to get a permission from National Biodiversity Authority. Yeah.
Sir. This
Yeah.
is under which section? Can you give us, sir, information like?
This section is not actually. This is the common section they have given us. So
Yes, sir.
this comes under actually. This section means local community section 36. This concept formation is there,
Sir.
and
Yes,
in
sir.
that you can approach the people, means managers, to get a permission. Okay.
Sir.
Yeah. And also according to the section 39, also you get a permission from that is a cheap one to give a permission from. Yeah, permission to carry out survey in the parks and protected areas and sanctuaries.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Right.
Sir, the Google form you shared, it's not responding.
Yeah, I don't know whether what is the problem. I will share with you some Google form. I will send to you. Okay. And
Yes,
you put your suggestions. Means for
thank you.
Thank you for having a nice evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.